I'm doing well, Stephen A. It's good to see
bro.
you.
Yes, sir.
Hey, happy birthday.
Thank you.
You think I was going to let that slide? Did you have a good day?
I had a beautiful day.
Okay.
I spent the whole day with my
Happy
daughters. It was
birthday
good.
to you, sir.
Aw, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Thanks, bro.
Daddy-daughter time, nothing
Yeah.
better. All right, let's get it. Max, I'm going to start with you. This Falcon situation, how worried should we be about the NFL season at this point?
Worried. I mean, the according to CNN, the fall surge of coronavirus cases is here. We're up over 50,000 a day. You know, like a month ago, it was 30,000, and it decreased from a peak of almost, I think, like 70,000 not all that long ago. But now it's not only climbing, but it's already at rates where you say, uh-oh, this is a real problem. And the cold weather is here and all that. The NFL is dealing with multiple games that have been postponed, at least so far. But that all said, the NFL is doing way better than I anticipated they would. They are past the quarter pole and have played all their games, almost all their games. I mean, the Steelers had to sacrifice a bye later and take a bye early, but technically, nothing's really been canceled so far. And that is an amazing feat. Now, that said, that has occurred during a time where the cases were falling and people were feeling better and opening back up. And that's the thing about a pandemic absent a vaccination, is that you close things down to flatten and hopefully crush the curve. And then you have to reopen things where you can responsibly, naturally, because people do have to live their lives. And you try to make some kind of new normal that works. But as that happens, usually the cases go back up. And then you have to rinse and repeat until you can find a vaccination or contact trace in such a way that you can really isolate and totally crush the curve. So this is not unanticipated. I never thought in the beginning that the NFL had a prayer of finishing their season. I never thought it got above a 50-50 shot. I still believe that. But I'm encouraged, even in spite of what I just said, that things are getting worse, that you could anticipate that this would happen, that when you start to flatten the curve, it's going to spike back up again, and that's what we're seeing. All those things said, Stephen A., I'm encouraged by the fact that we're past the quarter pole, and so far, technically, there hasn't been a cancellation of a game. That's encouraging. I still think the NFL faces long odds.
Stephen A., I just want to mention quickly, there was another new positive COVID test on the Atlanta Falcons this morning, so that also just came in.
Max uses the word encourage. I'm going to be controversial with what I'm about to say, but I really feel it from the bottom of my heart, so to hell with it. This is what it is. I'm actually happy. And let me tell you why I'm happy. Because at some point in time, people need to be on alert. This virus that has ravaged the world, obviously our nation, obviously contributing to over 2,000 deaths, and there's nothing to be happy about that. Here's what I'm happy about. The fact that this has happened now puts you on alert. Let's take into account what's transpiring here. The same week that we've learned about additional tests from the NFL that appears to be positive, LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers win the championship in the NBA. And in the post-game conference, LeBron talks about how difficult it was, but applauded the NBA by reminding the world the NBA did not have one single positive test. So what's the difference? What's the problem between the NBA and the NFL? No positive tests over the course of 4 months. We're not even 2 months into the NFL season, and there's been positive tests in Tennessee. There's been positive tests in New England. There's positive tests in Atlanta, et cetera, et cetera. Well, there was a bubble in the NBA. The NFL didn't want that, meaning its Players Association and beyond. Everybody wanted to go about life, living life as normal as possible. And they didn't want to put forth the due diligence and make the necessary sacrifice in order to ensure the safety of all parties concerned. Yeah. So you get what you get. This is what it comes down to. Guess what? You're talking about the Atlanta Falcons. Now, obviously, the practice facility, where their practice facility is located, is distant from the city of Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Talk to folks in the city of Atlanta. I mean, every time I call my boys down there, they out. Everybody out. It's like, they talk about things being relatively restricted, but the restaurants are open, the bars, et cetera, et cetera. Now, they closed down March 19th. They opened in April.
They opened very quickly.
They opened in April.
Yes.
There was a big controversy about that. And so there's a level of normalcy that the ATL is enjoying that a lot of folks throughout this nation don't have the luxury of enjoying. Here in New York City, despite the fact that things have moved in a forward direction, we know the 32,000 plus deaths that the city of New York initially suffered, and it was literally the hot spot, okay? But Governor Cuomo and everybody else got together and they did what needed to be done, and still we haven't fully reopened in New York City. Hell, I couldn't even go to the movies a couple of weeks ago. Couldn't go.
Yeah.
Because guess what? They weren't open. You couldn't do that. And so you got to pay attention to what's going on. What we have is a situation with NFL, pretty much the players, all right? Because, again, don't tell me that the NFL didn't want you to be in a bubble kind of atmosphere. Yeah. It's something, Max, you know that I've been promoting for months. What did I say? I'm not talking about 1,696 players being in the same location. We understand that's unreasonable. But when a season begins, when training camp opens, you could go to that particular facility that you are called upon to come to for training camp. You can restrict yourself to that for the season. You can have visits once or twice a week from family. They'll get tested upon entering. They can't enter until they test negative, et cetera, et cetera. We don't see nor hear about a lot of that going on. So as a result, one can easily deduce that what's transpiring is that you got guys, obviously most who are honoring safety protocols, but there are some who may not. And as a result, they go out and do their own thing, and you end up finding yourself in this kind of predicament.
Not just no bubble, it's the numbers game. We're looking at 53 players.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Molly,
so, I mean, that's what I'm saying. They brought it on themselves.
Right.
It's almost nearly impossible to contain, right, Max?
That's why when I heard stories about people talking about, well, personal responsibility will result in the NFL being able to complete their season, the numbers are just against it. But I want to talk about the Players Union and the NFL, Stephen A. When Major League Baseball players balked at doing what the NBA did, and let's remember, the NBA was almost done with their season, and they didn't complete their regular season. They completed enough regular season games, which I think was 7 or 8 more when they had the bubble, in order for the local TV revenue to kick in. They were able to do that because, and the players were more amenable to it partly because, not to take any credit away from them, they didn't have as far to go as other leagues who hadn't even begun. So it's also a little easier because there are fewer people on a team, including support staff in the NBA, than in the other sports. Nevertheless, credit the NBA players for signing up for what they did, being away from their family, the whole thing. So they got to complete their regular season, get their local TV money, and eventually crown a champion, and they had to make certain sacrifices, the players. The Major League Baseball Players Union balked at a bubble. We don't want to be away from our families, etc. So baseball, MLB, unilaterally said, okay, in that case, 60-game season. No fans, 60-game season. Major League Baseball looks like they're going to crown a champion, I think against the odds, even though, as you pointed out, Major League Baseball is a socially distant sport largely to begin with, as opposed to football, which is the opposite. But I thought the odds were long, but they were able to do it partly because no fans, 60 games, not 162, 60. The owners had to cut their losses and prorate salaries for the players, right? NFL didn't do that. If the Players Union is balking at a bubble and the whole thing, it's a long season, they haven't even begun yet, you need multiple bubbles, as you mentioned in the NFL. If the players balk, then the NFL's proper response, in my view, at the time, should have been the grown-up, the adult plan. Okay, guys, what if we did an 8-game season? So you had to be away from your family for 10 weeks, and then we regroup for the postseason, something along those lines, prorated salaries and all that. That, to my knowledge, was not discussed. What the owners wanted was to make every penny they could, knowing that they would lose on the live gate and that sort of thing. And so they're attempting in the NFL to have a full 16-game season, no bubbles, in a sport where the